Get the hell away from me! The mechanic shouted before the impacts of his shoes connected with the face of some guy he had never met before in his life. He was frothing at the mouth and squealing like he was possessed by the devil himself, trying to bite a chunk off of his leg. The guy stank of blood and puke. His skin was pale. His eyes were void. He had just attacked Ellis with no reason or provocation. With one final powerful kick, the guy flew backwards, seeing that he was sufficiently stunned. Ellis rolled over and scrambled to his feet, running fast down the sidewalk. That guy wasn't the only one acting up. There were others, too. They all were incoherent, babbling sounds as they were furiously chasing after him. Some of them Ellis knew personally. What the hell is going on here? He raced through the streets, heading towards the one place that contained one person he could always count on. The apartment building wasn't far, just a few blocks from his house, where he left to start out his day, when everybody freaking attacked him. Ellis nearly tore the front doorknob off as he darted inside, a group of madmen still on his trail. He scrambled up the stairs on all fours to the fourth level, where he found the apartment door he was looking for. The pursuers were still trying to mindlessly stumble up the second and third flight stairs. It wouldn't be long until they caught up with him. Quickly, he ran up to the door and knocked furiously, warily, glancing at his converging attackers. Keith, open up! It's me, Ellis. Some crazy dog trying to kill me here, please. The first attacker arrived at Ellis's level. He looked like a slightly overweight office junkie, vomiting colored spittle dripping from his gaping maw. He looked at the mechanic with empty eyes. God, they pierced his very soul. The man charged at him with hesitation, squealing insanely. Ellis attempted to defend himself by feebly raising his arms when the apartment door opened. Eyes still locked on the man, running after him. He dashed into the small, tobacco-smelling room. The man's face and arms got caught in the doorway as Ellis attempted to shut it. He yelped in pain and with endless growling, waving his limb and clawing at the air. Desperation. There was a loud bang that made Ellis's ears ring. He felt something wet and warm spatter on his face. The struggling stopped and the door gave way. Without thinking, he shut it and locked the deadbolt. His chest heaved as he ran his fingers down his face and brought his hand to his eyes. Blood. Ellis turned around. There, cradling smoking over was his buddy Keith, a cigarette glowing between his lips. Keith quit his vice years ago, but Ellis could see why it was a good time to start again. He took the coffin nail out of his mouth and blew a cloud of gray smoke without flicking it to the ground and putting it out with a stomp. Glad you can make it, man. Ellis could have said he was happy to see him, too, but he was still taken back by what he just did to that man. Jesus Christ, Keith! You killed him! Keith nodded, his long jet black hair bobbing with him. Unlike most guys, he preferred long hair over short fear of conformity, mostly. Old, slightly shiny burn scars patched across his thin, gaunt face. He wore a simple Megadeth t-shirt and faded jeans. On his feet, he wore boots. He always wore boots. Hell, he'd go to a fancy dinner party wearing boots. That is, if he was ever invited to one. His expression was unchanged as he glanced at the bloodstains and reloaded his shotgun. They ain't human no more, Ellis. You saw it yourself. Is that any way a normal person would act? But still, Ellis protested weakly. Keith continued, I saw the signs, man. A lot of people getting sick, the government getting involved, news blackout from the East Coast, military showing up. This ain't a regular flu, man. It's a zombie virus. He gestured to the table in the small living room and that had been recently rearranged. On top of the wooden surfaces sat nearly everything. Guns, ammo, food, folding knives, first aid kits, radios, canteens, and anything else one would need if they were going on a hardcore survival trip. If that included taking your own weight in shotgun shells. I've been stacking up, planning to weigh it out here. But that won't work. This ain't a regular zombie infestation. Military won't be saving this place. They'll be bombing it too. Soon. What? Ellis shouted. This was their hometown, for Christ's sake. How could they do that? You heard me, he replied in his flat, monotone voice. The infection's already spread across the coast, and the military is pulling all stops to get it contained. It's snafu. No options out of the window at this point. He continued after a slight pause. There's a military evac out over at the downtown high-rise. If we can get there before the day after tomorrow, we'll be choppered out of this place. But what about all dead and gone? He interrupted. Ellis reeled with the revulsion of this whole situation. All the rest of his friends dead? He slowly slumped down the surface of the door before finally hitting the ground. Tears started to form in his eyelids, sorrow threatening to completely overtake him. They were dead. They were dead. Hey, Keith stood over him, hand held out. You and me, we've been through some tough shit. Maybe not as tough as this, but we're gonna get through it. So help us God. He smiled. It was a genuine, meaningful smile that could only come from the bestest buddy in the whole wide world. Ellis had known him for so long. He was like a brother to him. Keith thought the same. Sure, the naive mechanic got him hurt and mangled a lot of the time due to his carelessness or downright stupidity, but their companionship went a lot deeper than a few dozen sorries and a get-well-soon card. They understood each other. They've also had their share of ups and downs. But if any true friendship existed in the damnable planet, it would be theirs. Ellis slapped his palm and gripped tight, hoisting himself up and with Keith Sade. His tears were long forgotten. You're right, man. We're gonna do this. We're gonna get out of here, and we're gonna kill a few hundred zombies while we're at it. Ellis turned and raised his right sleeve. Ellis did likewise on his left. They both had matching tattoos on their arms. You and me, Keith rephrased, we're badass zombie killing machines. Ellis nodded. Hell yeah. To Ellis, everything suddenly became distant and muffled, like he was being lifted and flown away by some ethereal force. He could hear a voice calling his name. Dude, Ellis! The human snored back to reality, his head seared with agony. He reached up with his hand and felt a lump on his forehead. Sawdust and Ball-Peen stood over him, worried looks planted on their otherworldly equine faces. Oh, shit. What the hell happened? He tried to sit up. His head throbbed, almost beat him back down. You were running and you tripped. Fell flat on your face. It was Ball-Peen who spoke this time. He hovered with his wings while holding up Ellis's discarded hard hat with his front hooves. I told you, safety first. His memory was fuzzy. Why was I running again? Sawdust moved aside, gestured to Rainbow Dash, who was shuffling awkwardly, looking at the ground in shame. Ellis suddenly remembered. Oh, yay! Cyan Pegasus stepped closer to the bipedal sitting figure. I'm really, really sorry. I just lost my cool. Ellis scrunched his face and chuckled. The chuckle turned into a short burst of laughter. He didn't know why he laughed, but it felt good in a way. His head still smarted, though. Dash looked at him funny, like she broke him or something with a head injury. We've all done our share of stupid shit, my girl. He quickly corrected himself. Some of us way more than others. He really had to drill it in his head to remember that she's a female. He could admit that her voice could be quite high for a guy. In hindsight, he really couldn't determine why he assumed her gender incorrectly in the first place, or her sexual orientation. Maybe it was the hair? No, I really mean it, she insisted, that with guilt laced in her voice. If Twilight hadn't shown up, I probably would have strangled you while you were unconscious. Said Lavender Unicorn stepped forward. Don't be too hard on yourself, Rainbow. It's okay. It's done. It's done. Let's just drop it. She looked at Ellis with concern. Are you okay? I've had worse. He wasn't lying. See, he's fine, and he forgives you. You can stop blaming yourself now. Ellis finally got a good look at Rainbow Dash. Her eyes were really red and stained with tears. Her lips were still quivering, and she sniffed softly as she watched the human with emotional turmoil. The sight hit him through the chest where it counted. Oh, come now, girl. He spread his arms open and took her embrace. It's all good. You done nothing wrong. It's my fault. Oh, my own fault anyways. Really. She whimpered in his gentle hug. Twilight knew that she looked incredibly flustered when he ran his fingers through her mane, trembling a little more than usual. They broke the embrace and dashed it back, more maladroit than she intended, and blushed brightly. Ellis slowly got on his feet. He wobbled a bit and cupped his forehead, but he soon stabilized. "How long was I out?" he asked Twilight. "A good 5 minutes. You scared us for a while. We were close to calling the doctor, but I'm not sure if any pony here is qualified to treat a human. Like I said, I've had worse. I'll be fine. Just gotta walk it off." He stumbled over, catching himself as he tried to move forward. The pony started in surprise. "Are you sure, man?" Sawdust asked. "You're going pretty fast when you just pulled the brakes with your face stopped on a dime." "Man, I've been beaten, crushed, burned, nearly torn apart. Hell, I've been shot a couple times. Rochelle didn't have the best aim. Here's a paper cut compared to what I've been through." Twilight understood exactly what he was saying. Thought the other three were confused and worried beyond belief. He picked himself up once again, acceptably balanced this time. "Well," Sawdust said, "I guess it's back to work, man." All five of them headed back to the West District, where they would resume repairing the roof. Ballpeen gathered more 2x4s and set to hammering the rest of them in. They were almost to the point where they would start covering it with plywood. Then they would shingle it. Twilight and Rainbow Dash watched Ellis as he rested on a bench. They were still worried about him. He just didn't seem like himself after he woke up. "Ellis, if there's anything you need," Twilight offered, "just some time to recover." She sighed. He was tough. That was evident. He was tougher than most ponies she knew. Applejack was the only one she could think of that shared his unwillingness to be fazed by pain or injury. So far, she assumed that she was the only one to see him in a state of weakness. Back in her library, when he almost had a mental breakdown, Celestia, that gave her quite a scare. Spider continued offerings of help. He politely refused, not because of pride, but because he didn't want to trouble them more than he had to. "Okay," the unicorn concluded, finally giving in. "If you say you're fine, we'll just leave you to your job. Come on, Rainbow." Texas huffed indignantly. "What if I want to stay and talk to him some more?" Twilight gave an annoyed glance at the stray clouds that listed overhead. "Didn't the weather call for clear skies?" "Oh, whoops!" She sped off to catch up the neglected weather control. Twilight sighed and once again addressed the human. "Well, we all have things to do, so I guess I'll be off." She turned to head back to the library. "Wait," Ellis called after. She stopped and turned around. "I just wanted to thank you for all the things you did for me. You never asked anything of me in return, though." Twilight smiled. "You're very welcome, but I don't need to do anything for me to make up for the things I did for you. After all, what are friends for?" She'll have to resume her day on that note. Ellis laughed softly to himself, shaking his head. "I'll have a magical unicorn as a friend now. Imagine that." Spike put his face to the floor and sniffed. His scaly nostrils opened and closed with each inhale. On all fours he traversed the library, sniffing like some kind of tiny purple bloodhound. His eyes were closed. He was diverting all of his attention to his sense of smell, which, in all honesty, wasn't as good as Pinky's, but just barely enough to get the job done. He caught the trail, and ever so faint musk of the salt water and fish tickled his olfactory nerves. The pearls. Twilight took them away from him, but that wasn't fair. He bought them with his own money. She had no right to take them from him. Well, maybe a little, but still he had at least deserved a taste. He hasn't even had a lick of them yet. Why didn't he have a couple when he was coming back to the library from buying them? Either fear of his mouth turning a different color and Twilight noticing or savoring the moment until he was in his favorite eating spot. Probably a little of both. It didn't matter now. She didn't count on Spike finding it with his sense of smell. Why should minerals smell like anything? Usually they didn't, but these were pearls. They've been marinated in the mouth of a clam for years. They practically reeked of marine residue. His dogged hunting brought him up the stairs to Twilight's bedroom. There, snout still scanning the ground, he circled around the room several times, gauging the intensity of the scent carefully before it became too familiar and undetectable to him. It got stronger as he came to her bed. Spike rose up and took a large breath of air through his nose, tasting with his oh-so-sought after delicacies. It was here. He was sure of it. He climbed up to the pristine bed sheets and covers, taking care not to leave too much of a mark. Twilight could tell. Her OCD gave her an attention to detail almost akin to rarities. His hunt came to an end at the head of the bed, or so he thought. The scent was overpowering here, but there was nothing here, just a blank wall. The wavy grain of the wood lined its natural non-planar surface. Funny, he thought. Could have sworn there was a shelf here. He reached out with his stubby claws to feel the wall. He yelped as his weight gave way. The surface rippled around his wrist. In his sudden panic, he quickly pulled away. The wall distorted slowly, until finally returning to its original disguise. Spike blinked as he realized it wasn't evil sorcery, but Twilight's doing. He had no idea she could do that too. Then again, the unicorn was Celestia's protege. She was full of surprises. Hesitantly, he reached in again, and the ghostly wall contorted and shimmered in his touch. He felt around blindly for his bag. His claws ran over a few books, unsurprisingly, probably late-night reading materials. He felt the first non-book object, a strap, and pulled it out. What came out was not his bag. It was some kind of thin, flat sheath, perfectly straight, make of super tightly woven, yet flexible tan material. It was heavy. Something resided inside of it. He found something sticking out of one end. Some hard, dull orange thing wrapped in black tape. He smelled a faint metallic tang on it. He manipulated it with his claws, curiously. He had never seen anything like it before. Turning it handle down, the thing slipped out slightly, revealing a shiny surface. He grabbed a tape-wrapped knob and pulled it out of the object, dropping the sheath. It was metal, flat metal attached to a handle. It sprouted forth from the base, and width gradually crescendoed until one side curved to meet the other at a 90-degree angle. With other inspections, Spike could see that it was sharpened, albeit thoroughly chipped. The flat was stained with flecks of blackish-reddish stuff, which the dragon could not identify. It was just a weird knife. Why would Twilight keep something like this hidden? He held it out, both of his meager claws holding the handle. Without thinking, he swung it side to side. A peculiar motion thumped in his chest. He felt slightly lighter, elated. He swung it again, a sharpened side forward. The indescribable feeling came yet again, more powerful this time. It felt good, like he was made to do this. Like a young pony would feel when he or she would get his or her key mark. He gripped it tightly. Suddenly he wasn't in Twilight's bedroom anymore. He heard an encompassing whooshing sound as Spike closed his eyes and his mind was sucked into another place. It was dark. Pitch black, in fact. Nothing could be seen beyond him. Himself. Something peered to his right. Glowing red dots. Blood-colored specks against the ebony background. It moved and bobbed, seemingly getting closer. 8 of them. More appeared to his left, then behind him, then in front, then off to the side. Which, with them, a sound finally ushered above the howling wind. Chittering, sound of chitin and chitin, on chitin, clacking together. A raspy, hungry, sucking growls came too. Their nightmarish forms became outlined. Shapeless, inky, slender figures. Their bodies seemed to be fluctuate and shift, blending together into a mass of evil and malevolence. There was dozens upon dozens of them, all short of perfect circle around Spike, reaching out with their obsidian talons, in need of something to rip and tear. Darkened spittle dribbled from their frothing mandibles. They were ready to slaughter. Spike was not afraid. He should have been, but something kept him calm. He felt as if he were wearing the skin of an entirely different dragon. Sure enough, he was not the same. Gone was the stumpy, cherub-like form of a baby dragon. In his place was a 7-foot-tall, rigid individual. His toned legs were taut with anticipation. His broad chest spanned over rippling muscle underneath his matted, hardened scales. Armor covered his shoulders, complete with flowing red cape. His cleft jutted heroically outwards from his lower face. He definitely was not afraid. With his well-trained, powerful arms, he raised the weapon. Great, branded steel, lower two-handed grip. Deadly morning star pommel. A visage of great awe-inspired dragon, head on a hilt. It was glorious, shining rubies for eyes, and from its gaping golden maw sprouted forth a wicked blade exposed of a flat, which was also embedded with smooth, glittering gems. It extended above Spike's head. As he rose into a vertical position, coiled and ready to strike, it was more than just perfectly balanced in his claws. It was an extension of himself. The horde of twisted monsters continued to snarl and jeer, aching to get a taste of his blood. Spike's brow intensified as he uttered but 4 words. "Come at me, bro!" With an unholy screech, the first of them leapt, malformed limbs ending in bladed fingers outstretched. Spike turned and swung, his sword sang the Cantus Motem as it sailed and hit the atramantis shell, splitting it like a reed. The monster screamed as he met his demise, the blade clearing all the way through its chest. Toxic ichor splattered from the cut, staining Spike's blade, his chest, and his face before the two halves of the lifeless body thumped to the ground and dissolved into the black smoke. Another sprang forward. Spike reacted with a downward horizontal slicing, at first through its slender, barbed arm, then through its skull, cleanly and easily as the last. More came one after the other. They clawed, they thrashed, they bit its skull. Crap. They bit, but to no avail. One by one, he slayed them all. Corpse after smoking corpse hit the dust. Spike danced a deadly ballad, sword flying and wounding and smiting and vanquishing, stabbing red eyes and hacking piteous chitin. Dark fog rose from the dissolved bodies of the fallen, which he dispersed with a swirling whirlwind of razors. But at last the monsters were defeated. Their slowly dissipating, mangled forms covered the ground around him as Spike breathed in and out, relishing in the afterglow of combat. He had won. He was victorious. Spike snapped back to reality. He blinked at the plain machete in front of him, mind reeling from what he had just experienced. To an onlooker, he would have appeared to stand still for several seconds, staring blankly into space with a blade in his claws. He turned the knife over end once more, exhilarated by the effect it had on him. "Whoa," he breathed. There's a familiar sound of the library door opening. "Spike, I'm back!" Panicked, he quickly resheathed the machete, placed it back into the enchanted cubbyhole. He then jumped off the bed and straightened out the covers, leaving it as straight and tidy as before. Twilight Sparkle came up the bedroom to find her assistant nonchalantly dusting the furniture, whistling while he worked. "Oh, hey, Twilight," he said, injecting innocent cheer into his voice, succeeding all too well. The librarian found nothing out of order. "Anything happen while I was gone? Did anybody visit?" Nope. Nothing happened. I was only dusting," he said hurriedly while the feathered tools swiped the bookshelves. "Well, all right, carry on." She walked off downstairs. Spike sighed in relief. That was close. It was just a little past 11 o'clock, and the roof was going along swimmingly. All the beams had been repaired, and they had just begun trimming plywood to cover it. To haul the sheet up, ropes had been looped around the corners so Balpine could lift it by the rope. They would be carefully set into place and then fastened in while Ellis and Sawdust were busy cutting them to fit. Said Human wiped the perspiration from his forehead with his arm and set back to sawing. His limbs were starting to get sore, but he kept working nonetheless. Sawdust said that lunch was at 12 sharp, so it was less than an hour until a 20-minute break. The teeth of the blade divided the wood, leaving particles of tan dust to float to the ground and collect on his overalls, which he shook off every now and then. Ponyville was at the height of activity now. The pastel equines trotted about and occasionally stopped to see the human. A journalist even came and asked the human some more questions, which Ellis answered. The pony flashed his camera and went back to printing house to put it on tomorrow's paper. No pony impeded his job too much. Not until... "Dude, quick, hide!" Sawdust suddenly shouted. "What?" Ellis replied, confused. The unicorn didn't wait to explain. Using his magic, he tossed Ellis behind a stack of uncut lumber. Ellis didn't know why he had to hide, but he trusted Sawdust's word and laid on the ground, not moving or making a sound. He strained his ears to catch wind of what was going on. A grinding sound signaled that Saw picked up where he left off. "Where is he?" An unfamiliar voice spoke. It sounded female, slightly tense. "Oh, hey, Lyra," he heard the Okri pony half reply. "Where is he?" "He's not here." Sawdust sounded like he was trying to remain calm. "I know he's here. Some pony said he was here." "Sorry, that's a wrong Runo. He's actually working on a post office in the Northeast District." A pause. "Gah!" The one saw called Lyra exclaimed in frustration and stomped off. Ellis still remained noiseless. "You can come out now, she's gone." Ellis rolled over and got to his feet. "Who the hell was that?" "That was Lyra," he exclaimed. "Got tipped off that she was looking for you this morning." "Why?" "Don't know, but this isn't the first time she's acted up. She ain't right in the head, man." The whole situation wasn't any closer to making sure for Ellis. Why would she be after him? Did she hate him? "Look, dude," Sawdust gave a worried glance at the direction where Lyra left. "Just look out for her. Don't let her see you. Don't let her find you. She's a unicorn, minty colored. White highlights in her mane. Lyra cutie mark." He looked back at the human. I'll watch out for you." "Okay." Alex still wasn't clear, but he merely returned to sawing. He casted very wary side-to-side takes, watching out for that Barmy pony. Apple Bloom galloped toward the bright red barn of Sweetapple Acres. The little filly giggled in delight as she passed the corn, alfalfa, and other secondary crops that grew close to the structure. A friendly cow waved her hello, and she paid no attention as she sped past her too. She was trying to get to the house before Ellis left for Ponyville. As she came closer to the barn, Big Magtoss waved her to slow down. She obeyed. It was her brother, after all. She held respect for the stoic work pony. He was hitching a bucket-filled cart to his yoke, prepared to haul it out into the fields to resume his work from yesterday. His wheat stalk shifted the other side of his mouth and looked at Apple Bloom with lethargic eyes. "Now, what's the hurry here, sister?" The yellow filly bounced up and down. "I'm trying to get to Ellis before he leaves. I want to ask him something." Big Macintosh sighed. "You just missed him. He and Jackly already left for town." Apple Bloom hung her head in disappointment. Her bow tie sagged. "But," her brother continued, "AJ wanted me to give you this." "I can't do that." He fished into his saddlebag, pulled out a black square, and lightly tossed it to her. She caught it and turned it up with her teeth so she could see it in front of her face. What is this?" she muffled. "He said let's swallow it. He gave it to you." The object grinned. Apple Bloom grinned wildly. Her eyes sparkled in wonder. "Cool! Now, you go off and play for her now. I've got some work for you later." He trailed off to it. His sister ignored him and made a beeline for the house, eager to inspect her new gift. "Guess I should have mentioned that before I gave it to you." Apple Bloom shut the door to her room and hopped up into her tiny bed. She set the wallet in front of her, tilting her head and scrutinizing it vividly. She flipped it over in her petite forehooves and prodded it some more. She was completely clueless as to how it worked, so she did what she always did when confronted with stubborn small objects. She took it in her teeth and shook it vigorously. The trifold came open, and out flew rectangular pieces of paper, plastic cards, and other stuff. Apple Bloom set the wallet down and inspected the green papers. They were intricate in design, double-sided too. One side had a human face on it, and the other a picture of some building. They each varied slightly, different faces, different symbols, and such. The plastic cards didn't have too much on them, but to her they looked like useless hunks of whatever. Apple Bloom sighed. She shook the wallet again to see if anything else would fall out, but to no avail. This was all boring junk. They were just bits of paper and plastic. But they're alien bits of paper and plastic. Apple Bloom considered the new perspective on the items strewn out on her bed, but it didn't help make any more interest. She was hoping for some out-of-this-world magic device like the aliens have in Scootaloo's comic books. Awesome technology that could shoot lasers and control some pony's mind. She plodded and stared at the papers once more. Apple Bloom was starting to think that Ellis wasn't an alien at all. Something caught her eye, something she had noticed before. Small white piece of paper. It looked kind of old, too. She could tell instantly that there was more to it. She took the paper and flipped it so the other side was facing up. Al Bloom's eyes widened. It was a photograph of Ellis, but another human was in it as well. This human, however, had long a black mane instead of Ellis's short brown one. He stood behind Ellis, one arm around his shoulder, the other hand held out with 2 fingers raised. They were both smiling. Al Bloom didn't know why, but she knew that this must have been Ellis's friend. They just looked and acted like they've been with each other for a long time. The little filly felt a pang of sadness for the human. When he came to Equestria, he didn't have this other guy with him. But why? Couldn't he come? Maybe he couldn't afford to take it for the spaceship or something. Ellis must miss him. They looked so happy together. Al Bloom gathered all the paper, plastic, and the wallet together and put it in the little woven basket for safekeeping. She stopped herself by putting the photo for the rest of the stuff. With a moment of consideration, she decided to keep the picture in a more special place than the rest. Storing the basket under her bed, she placed the photo on her nightstand and gazed at it a short while. I could ask Ellis about him when he gets back. I'm sure he'll love to tell a story about him. It was finally noon, lunchtime for the construction workers. Big Boss came around for another pass. His narrowed eyes watched for mistakes and any signs of indolent behavior. Finding none, he noisily rang a bell attached to the side of his office trailer. All right, lunch break. Back to work in 20 minutes. He trotted off to his favorite diner, the one he always went to for lunch every day. Sawdust and Ball Peen exhaled and unpacked their lunches out of the metal containers. Ellis's stomach growled. His internal clock signaled it was time to eat. Only he hadn't packed a lunch. He flicked himself in the forehead for being so forgetful. Ball Peen saw Ellis's distress and flew up beside him. Hey, you want some of mine? The achromatic Pegasus offered his sandwich. Ellis only had a glance at it to see that it was stuffed with raw oats, hay, and flowers. Horse food. No, thanks. I'll get by. Back during the apocalypse, he sometimes went days without food. That was the true nightmare, not the zombies. Not the bombs, but trudging on with nothing in his belly but a cup of water and a single strip of beef jerky. He didn't like skipping lunch, but he knew he could survive it. Well, all right. Balpine returned unceremoniously, chomped into his food, munching at what another likely rarity would consider a rude volume. The Pegasus seemed distant most of the time, seemingly thinking to himself and keeping quiet. Sawdust could bring him out of his shell once in a while, but he was very reserved. He decided that he would ask what was on his mind sometimes. Ellis walked over and stood on a bench just to the side of the street, intent on passing the rest of his break, relaxing and observing the town folk. He smiled to the citizens, and they smiled back. He started to see common street goers. Ponyville must have an incredible small population, Ellis thought. He's seen the brown colt with hourglass cheating mark 9 times already. Then he saw a familiar face that he didn't think he'd see for a while. It was Applejack, heading his way, saddlebags on her back. Ellis' face brightened dramatically as he waved her. She didn't look as enthusiastic. In fact, she looked a bit melancholy. He formulated a plan to better her mood. Hey, Ellis, she said as she came up in an audible distance with the human. Hey, AJ, just want to ask you something. He took a pair of shades from his pocket and pulled them out. Put them on. Why the long face? Yeah! Where'd you get those? The orange bear inquired. Oh, Dashley, let me borrow them for a while. He took off the shades and stowed them back in his pocket, disappointed that his joke had missed. So you talked to her then? I haven't seen her since yesterday. Applejack hesitated before going on. And I really ain't the type to listen to rumors, but I heard you two got in a scuffle. Is that true? He took off his hard hat and displayed the dark bruise on his forehead. Just a small one. It's all right. Oh my gosh, did she do that to you? No, this was all me. I fell. Got knocked out cold, too. She was just chasing me, he replied somberly. Why? I, may have miscalculated her gender. By a bit or so. You thought she was a colt. I'll search for proper words to respond to that. Finding none, he simply raised his arms, shrugged, for the whole damn thing was just a cheeky little mistake. That did it for Applejack. She completely broke the frown on her face and started chortling, the hilarious spasms squeezing her for every last breath her in a discrescendoing chuckle before taking a deep gulp of air and laughing even harder. Her legs gave out and she was brought to her knees. Then her belly. She buried her face in front of her forelegs, pounding the ground with the other. Ellis merely sat awkwardly in the farm pony, lost control of herself with a good half minute. Then she was finally done. She stood back up on wobbly legs, a grin still stuck on her face. This is just too much. Why the hey did you think she wasn't a filly? I don't know. I guess it was just the way she acted and all. Ellis could tell that he regretted that screw up more than. She could tell that he regretted that screw up more than he cared to admit. I didn't mean to laugh at you. I'm sorry. Well, don't be, girl. It's always nice to meet people, make people laugh. He put his hard hat on, wincing at the pressure applied to his tender bruise. Sides. You have to have a nice smile. But the smile disappeared after he said that. Ellis was worried that he may have said something wrong, something unintentionally insulting. On her face was an expression that almost looked like surprise. He couldn't be sure. A flash of facial movement only lasted a split second. Wait, well, thanks, Ellie. She said, only reaching around into her salad bag to take out a paper-covered parcel. I know she didn't bring a lunch with you, so I brought you some peanut and apple butter. Ellis took the sandwich and wrapped it. Don't you mean peanut butter? Don't you mean peanut butter and apples? He inquired. Nope. Applejack replied plainly. The human was intrigued, so he did give it a bite. She wasn't lying when she said it. Peanut butter and apple butter. Crunchy nuts smothered in some kind of creamy and smooth apple jam. It was delicious. He expressed his content through a stuffed mouth after gulping it down. "'Tis a good. 'Tis good. Thanks, Applejack. Oh, it's no problem at all. I was happy to make it for you." He quietly ate his sandwich, and the conversation shifted in awkward small talk. So, how's work going for you? Find everything to be all right? Yep, he said with a bread-filled mouth. Anything else happen? He wanted to tell her about Lyra, but he couldn't grasp the situation with her enough to make sense of it. He had no idea why she wanted to see him so badly. None of the other ponies acted this strongly to his appearance. No, just business and all. Jack looked around, apparently trying to find something to talk about. She sighed. All right, Alice, I'll leave you all to it and see you later. See ya. Alice waved while she walked off. Thanks again for the food. You're welcome, she called back from the distance. A nice smile. Applejack pondered while she walked. That's a first. Alice was either quite good at flattery or that was a genuine compliment. She wasn't too sure about the latter. Aren't smiles all the same? She discarded the thought, sitting on it and getting to Sugar Cube Corner where Fluttershy had asked for her help getting Pinky out of her room. Applejack couldn't believe that she was still in there. Even she needed to eat once in a while, right? Though, this wasn't the first time Pinky had acted like such. The Orange Earth Pony still worried due to the fact she had no clear reason to do so. Ellis has been proven to be completely harmless, and the rest of the town knows that. Pinky was the only one still locked in her home. Maybe she was just regretting the fact that she caused this problem in the first place. Not likely. She's done the same during last Nightmare Night. And although, as it turned out, she was just doing it for harmless fun, one would think she would feel something so alienating the princess. Applejack entered the front door of the bakery. The smell of fresh pastries tantalizing her senses made her mouth water. She reminded herself that she wasn't here for sweets. Mrs. Cake was busy in the counter clearing the surface with a moist cloth. She looked up and smiled at the newcomer. Applejack, good to see you, she greeted. I haven't seen you around here for a while. Come for lunch? Nah, ma'am. I'm here for Pinky. Mrs. Cake frowned. Oh, she's still upstairs. I think your friends Rarity and Fluttershy are up there too, trying to get her to come out. Sure enough, she can hear the calls of the fashionista dampened through the walls between accompanied by the faint and punctual knocking sound of a hoof on the door. Miss Skank, aren't you her employer? Can't y'all just tell her to get her flung downstairs and back to work. The pudgy blue baker sighed. I wish it was that easy, dearie. Working with Pinky is kind of non-standard. She's half the reason why this bakery is so successful. Her extravagant baking, her festive arrangements. She even decorated when she first started working here. Me and my hubby put up with her quirks and shenanigans before that because of that. Applejack wasn't convinced. Is that so? Not really. Poor Sherlock. It's complicated. You're free to go upstairs and help out. Good luck, though. Nothing has worked so far with her. Thanks. Applejack nodded and ascended the steps to Pinkie Pie's room, where the alabaster and canary ponies stood right outside the door. The farm pony cleared her throat and both Rarity and Fluttershy looked around to meet her. The Pixis was the first to speak. I'm so glad you could come, Applejack. We've tried everything to get her out of here, she said in her soft, breathy voice. My patience is just about to run thin with that girl. Rarity started as she idly trimmed her hooves with a file. She's been rather difficult before, but never like this. She still thinks Ellis would hurt her or something. She still thinks Ellis would hurt her or something, Fluttershy explained. I really don't know much about him, but he doesn't seem like a type to go around hurting any other ponies. Applejack groaned. All right, let me give it a try. She walked up to the bedroom door and knocked. Pinkie Pie, it's me, Applejack. There was a pause before a reply came from behind the locked door. You're not getting me out! Applejack rolled her eyes. Look, Pinkie, I can tell you right now that I swear, no, I Pinkie promise that Ellis don't want to hurt you. She made a silly gesture that came from the right of Pinkie Pie's Pinkie promise and chanted the signature rhyme. Cross my heart and hope to fly, stick a cupcake in my ow! She accidentally thrust her hoof into her socket a little harder than she intended. There was a short moment of silence. Then a deadbolt slid and the door creaked open a smidgen. Pinkie Pie could be seen on the other side, but just barely. The room was dark. The shades were drawn shut. Applejack could make out her cotton candy mane, all frizzy and unkempt from having the bed covers pulled over her head for so long. She could see her eyes. Unease was written all over them. She whimpered, You promise? Pinkie, when I make promises, I darn well keep 'em. You should know that. She lowered her voice. Can you tell me why you're still scared of him? She opened the door a little further. His smell. His smell? Really? He doesn't stink that bad. In fact, he took a shower last night, all cleaned up. No, Applejack. No pony had ever seen her this quiet or forlorn. It scared them, to be honest. He smells like blood. Blood? Rarity exclaimed. Fluttershy was also taken back. He was coated in it, and I could smell him. I could smell a lot of things other ponies can't. Oh, darling, you must be imagining it. He does not look like the kind of creature who would do that. Rarity suddenly became unsure of herself in mid-sentence. All three turned to Applejack, who looked back with an expression of equivocation. Applejack, do you know something that has to do with this? The Ivory Unicorn inquisited. I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want any more cause for alarm. There was a reason he had that knife with him last night. Give me the story of what he went through before he got himself here. She wavered, not sure how to convey that she had been told. Go on, Rarity insisted. Y'all won't believe me, but I didn't think I could believe it myself. The place where he came from, it was full of zombies. Zombies? That's absurd! I ain't lying. That's what his machete was for. Defending himself against other infected humans. Trying to survive when the whole darn world was out to kill you. She looked at their faces. They were all near mortified except for Fluttershy's, who seemed strangely reserved in her reaction, only displaying despondency. He said he didn't have a choice. I personally think that he did the right thing, putting the tortured souls in a better place. I honestly wouldn't want to be in this place. Applejack focused on the pink mare. Pinks, he had it worse than any pony we know combined, and by a stroke of chance he got out of that hole and ended up here. Don't you think he deserved a chance? Well, Pinkie Pie was indecisive. One more thing. Applejack got within whispering distance. He really likes your cupcakes. By some force of unknown Pinkie magic, Her eyes brightened and her hair phased back into its normal, neatly poofy state. A bubbly smile spread across her face. Then let's throw him a part. Hold it right there, Mrs. Cake. Hold it right there. Mrs. Cake appeared behind them. You're not doing any parties until you've made up for skipping on me for yesterday and this morning. The amusement slapped her face. What? But okay. She hung her head and trudged downstairs, her boss yowling close behind her. Maybe tomorrow, Pinks, Abjack called. She was glad that was all taken care of. Hopefully that would be the last of her problems. All right, dude, Sawdust vocalized. Here comes the next part, re-shingling. Lunch was over, and so was the process of covering the beams with sturdy plywood. After a quick session of shouting from the big boss, they prepared their next designated task. All three helped haul the crates of roof tiles from the cart and set it to next to the wall of the building in repair. They all would be working on this from the roof. With their combined efforts, they would have to have it done in no time at all. Okay, Ellis, we just need a ladder. I think it's round back. You think you can get it? No problem. He did a two-finger salute and jogged off to the other side of the building. When he got there, he immediately saw the wooden implement, taking care not to acquire any unneeded splinters. He placed his hand on the side of the rungs, then a strange and eerie feeling struck Ellis. He felt like he was being watched. Hands still holding the ladder, he slowly turned his head around. A pony sat behind him, a unicorn to be exact. If he discerned the gender correctly, the muzzle shape dictated that, according to Rainbow Dash, she was a female. She was completely still, absolutely unmoving. The first thing Ellis noticed was her eyes. The irises were shrunk down to about the size of a golf ball, but the pupils were so dilated that almost entirely covered the eye color. Only a thin outline of yellow could barely be worked out. The next was a full-toothed grin, her demented smile. It nearly split her face in half. Ellis really started to feel creeped out. Then he noticed her color, green. Her mane had a white highlight in it. She had a liar key mark. Ellis realized who this was. You're that one. He trailed off, pointing at her. She nodded her head. Who was looking? She nodded again. He swore he could hear the creaking sound of rusty hinges as she flexed her neck. Her chilling expression remained the same. And you wanna? She nodded once again. Ellis sighed. He knew exactly what was coming next. Okay, here we go. He breathed while he limbered up with his legs. And so the citizens of the small town turned their heads to the sound of commotion again, to see the now well-known bipedal creature hauling at the top of his lungs again, being chased by a maniacal green unicorn for whatever reason most could not fathom. Again, Pony was going to need a bigger insane asylum. Come back here! Come back here! Wailed the sea-foam mad mare. I want your body! Can't I go for 5 minutes without being chased? Ellis yelled over his hysterics. Sawdust caught uproar and called out to the human. I told you about Lyra, bro. I warned you. It keeps happening.